1. And a very good evening to you all. It's 8 p.m. here in the UK, 3 p.m. on the East Coast, midday on the West Coast. Welcome. This is the Synth Network live show. It's Sunday, the 23rd of August. Welcome, one and all. Hello to everyone that's already joined us in the chat room, and good evening to the gentlemen you see on screen. We've got our regular co-hosts, Cryss and Ben, and we're joined this week by Marshal Arnold. Hi, Marshal. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
No, pleasure. Thanks ever so much for coming. We'll get to you in a short while, and we'll talk a little bit more about what you do and your background and the stuff that you've got online and release, and some of your demo videos as well, which we're going to have a look at. Let's just nip over to... We'll stay in the United States. We'll go over to California and speak to Cryss. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Yeah.
Good. Been up to much this week?
Yeah, just working hard. I did, as I was going through some stuff, found this ancient relic of the past. Let's see if I can get it, or you can actually see
iPod.
what it is. Yeah. So I had a little chuckle about that. But yeah, I'm doing well.
Good, excellent. And let's cross back over the Atlantic Ocean here to the UK, and we'll go to our illustrious leader, Mr. Ben Simpson. How are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Good. Busy week?
Well, I've had a mixed week. I've been doing a bit of painting of the new studio, and got thinking about me JD800 after I got over the red glue problem. So I thought, and then put it back together, and the keys didn't work. Well, some of the keys didn't work. I'd say about maybe 40% of the keys don't work anymore.
Oh, no.
So, but I've heard that you can put a certain D series key beds on them.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is right. I thought I'd sorted it with Ian Sharrock, member of the group. Mm-hmm. Funnily enough, he said, I've got a D50 in the loft here. It's fried. It doesn't do anything. I was like, oh, that sounds great. How much do you want for it? And he was like, you can have it. He said, after all, it is yours. I said, what? And I'd given him ages ago and forgot all about it. Anyway, we was all set to do this D50 swap thing.
Yeah.
Put the thing in, and then somebody in the group said that it doesn't work with the D50. I think it's just the D20 and the D10. So.
All right. Well, they're the cheaper ones at least.
Yeah, I'm on the hunt for one of those now. Hopefully, I can get back to 100% working capability.
Yeah, that was the thing back in those days, in the 80s and 90s. A lot of the manufacturers, they used the same key beds across their own ranges, but also between ranges. Yamaha and Korg shared a lot of stuff in the 80s and the early 90s, because for most of that period, I think Yamaha had a 50% stake in Korg. So there was a lot of cross-pollination. So, yeah, it pays to dig around, and you can often find cheap replacements in other models. So that's good. Well, good luck with that, because that JD800, I mean, is a great synth, but whoever designed that keyboard needs to be taken out and shot. Repeatedly.
Same guy who coded the Juno 106 voice cards.
Yes. Yeah. There's probably one guy that bounces around from company to company, makes really crap decisions, and then gets fired and moves to the next company and does the same.
What do you reckon his last job was then?
I think he's head of R&D at Behringer now. Oh no, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. No, that's a joke. Honestly, Uli, that's a joke. You haven't replied to my request to test your BBG. And I doubt you ever will, but anyway, never mind. So I'm just going to take a sip here, because I'm rather thirsty these last few days. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I'll be coming down with something. Sorry, I've got wine later. So let's see what we've got. We've got a whole bunch of topics. We're going to talk to Marshal in a bit more depth a little bit later on. But before we do, let's start going through some of the news of the week, or the last few days even. I think we should start. Let's start with this one, because I did notice when I was going back through certain shows doing some title editing and bits and bobs that we always seem to start, if we have a Behringer news story, we always start with the Behringer news story. So I'm conscious that we don't do that. We're going to start with the Korg story this week, because they have launched the Volca Sample 2. which is part of their lovely little Volca range. And it is a second iteration that features a new micro USB port, increased sample memory, a new up-to-date sound library, and additional functions for an improved workflow. I don't have one of these, so I couldn't say how much of an improvement over the old workflow it is. My first thing, whenever I see a sampler, I'm looking for the audio input, and of course this doesn't have one. You can either, I think you load in samples over USB, or there's an iOS app or something that you can record samples and then transfer them across.
I was going to say, it's not really a sampler, is it, without an audio in? It's a sample player.
Exactly.
But if they've done it through the iOS app, then it's a good workaround.
Hands up, does anybody here own a Volca sample?
No.
No, that's a big fat zero. So we're speaking with lots of authority here. I've heard in the past from Volca sample users that getting the samples in and out could be easier, and so I think that's been addressed with this USB port on the front plate there. But
yeah, because I think before you could only use the app.
Yeah, that's right. So I think now you've got these two options, which is it's interesting. I kind of like the idea of being able to sample on the app, because if that's an extension of the sampler itself, then they've just kind of broken it out and used the technology to give you this kind of flexibility. However, I would like something to plug something in, because I'm old-fashioned. I need cables, and so that would, I don't know. I have always thought that there's room for a really good basic function sampler, and this kind of ticks most of those boxes. Does anybody have a particular opinion on this? Are they glad to see it? Do they like it? Do they not like it?
I like the idea of it. I think that to have a sampling option in that Volca range, somebody who's just not just working with Volcas, but into the Volcas, then it's introducing them to an all new soundscaping possibility, isn't it? It might be something that they hadn't considered, but then adding it to the collection, it's opening up an all new kind of genre to them, really. But isn't its memory only 8 meg?
Yeah, it's small.
Yeah, that's you'd have to be quite creative with your sampling.
And that's the thing. That's what I like, is that going back to that old school where you've got very limited amounts of RAM, and you have to really think about what you're doing. And I don't know how much you can get into the sample editing here, but I like the direct function, knob per function type thing that they have going here. And I think everybody should be forced to, if they want to get into sampling, they should be forced to do it the old way, to then appreciate how easy it is today that you can just you can sample an instrument by using auto sampler or something on main stage, or it seems so damn simple. But I cut my teeth.
Robot.
Yes, and I cut my teeth on sampling a bit of audio in, and then manually going through finding those zero crossing points for the loops and everything, and it's fun. It's good fun. Marshall, do you are you a Volca user? Does this sort of thing appeal to you?
So when the Volcas first kind of came out, I was very interested in the Volca bass, because it seemed like you could do some 303 kind of style bass lines with those. So I picked one of those up. I think I might have had a Volca keys for a little while, but eventually I got rid of them.
Yeah.
So the sampler thing, though, I remember when that came out, that especially the people that really enjoy the Volca line of synths were really excited about that. So that's pretty cool, and I'm glad that they've updated it to where the process, it doesn't require, I guess, I don't know do you have to use the app all the time, even with the USB connection now?
Don't think so.
It'd be nice to be able to do it without needing the app, because what happens when they stop making the app, or working on the app or whatever? You still need a way to, people might still want to use these in 10 years. I don't know.
So according to the website, it says the new micro USB port added to the Volca sample allows you to connect your Volca sample to your computer to easily control your Volca and manage your samples. It allows you to easily control sync and play your Volca sample from any DAW. Plus, individual MIDI channels can now be assigned to different parts, making it easier to perform.
Yeah.
So yeah, it looks like it's a much improved sample management. And there's also, it says the Volca samples dedicated librarian software for Mac and PC in brackets coming soon. Utilizes the USB port managing and sending your samples and patterns back and forth, instantaneous and pain-free. Their words, not mine. So yeah, right. It does seem that it kind of gets rid of the dependency on the app, and it's an option. So that's good.
Yeah.
Cryss.
So,
yeah, I'm not really too familiar with Volcas except for the memes, but
yeah.
We won't discuss them.
Yeah, I'm sitting awkwardly today because I got. Yeah.
The question that I'd like to ask, because we have talked about sampling quite a bit on the show and previous shows, and I know, Robbie, you had purchased something for that purpose. If these devices don't have any sort of input method on them, the only sampler that I'm using is in Logic. Mm-hmm. So what is the favorite device to go out and find sounds, record them, and make them into instruments?
Well, personally, that's my little thing, the little Tascam DRO5, which is 24-bit WAV. It's super cool. You can plug microphones. It's got its own built-in stuff, and it's affordable. That's great for just going out and finding stuff. Yeah, that's me. I don't know about the rest of you.
I've got some kind of Tascam recorder too, but it's like a bigger one, and it's more to physically plug a mic into it and take it around if you want, or you could hook it up with it's more designed, I think, as like for a camera rig,
right?
To process audio and for video.
Sure.
I think I've got that one as well. It's like a box about this big with red bits on it.
Yep, and it's got like the little handles on the front and stuff.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one. Yep.
Yeah.
I can't remember the model of it now, but
no.
Yeah.
So I genuinely think it should be mandatory for anyone that wants to get into sampling to get themselves. It doesn't have to be a flashy digital thing. Anything that can just capture audio, and then go out and find sounds and just hit things with sticks or pennies or pebbles or whatever. And record it, and then bring it back in and just create something of their own. Just even just once or twice, just to kind of appreciate what sampling can do. And it's not just something you can use for putting in a big orchestra or stuff like that.
Yeah, starting off with percussion sounds is probably the easiest route, isn't it? Because you don't have to worry about like it being in tune and that. But it is a great thing to do.
I saw a video that it kind of came up on my feed. It was like related content type thing, and it was of someone who had made an entire track from found sounds, and this is great. However, they'd kind of like the blurb underneath it said, "Oh man, look what I've done," and it's just like, yeah, but I remember so I put something up on Facebook like saying all these people talking about. Making stuff with fan sounds like it's a new thing, and then just posted the Depeche Mode clip of I think it was Pipeline, which is just all samples. Everything is samples. The melody, the rhythm, everything. And of course, people were doing it way before that with tape. So yeah. But
what's the one where Peter Gabriel's like out rummaging around in like a junkyard, smashing TVs and stuff?
Yeah, that was part of a documentary. For the fourth album, where he was sampling it all and then taking the recordings back on a tape machine, plugging it into the Fairlight, and then.
There you go. Yeah, that's some old school technique.
Yeah. But I mean, if you listen to tracks like Rhythm of the Night and San Jacinto, where you've got this kind of rhythm going on. The rhythm is derived from pitching a sample down a few octaves, and you hear that all of a sudden the rhythm starts to emerge, and then he just builds on that, and that's just genius.
Yeah, it's like a rhythm in the harmonics, almost, and he picks up on that and expands on it.
But it's funny because when you do sample everyday things and then slow it down or speed it up, you hear stuff like rhythms that you would just not expect to find there.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
Yeah. Right.
But I mean, I like the idea of this. The Volcas. I must admit today I've been having a lot of trouble with my USB instruments. All these little things like the Craft Synth and the Sculpt and stuff, because USB is just you get the ground loop stuff going on if you're powering off the computer. So I've got some filters, but I've only got a couple of them. So I've been trying to route audio to kind of get rid of. Yeah.
Oh, what is that, Cryss? I want a bunch of those.
What is that large red thing you've got on the end of your cable?
It's called iDefender Plus. It takes care of ground loops and power noise.
Oh, right, yeah.
So this particular one has USB-A to USB-C, since I'm using a MacBook.
Gotcha.
And because I was having some problems, like when I'm working on like the Prophet 6 sound set, that when I have it connected up to the computer, there would be noise through the USB. So I grabbed myself one of these because there's been several times I've had various USB devices have that nasty noise. So they're kind of expensive, such a tiny little thing, and they're like $40 or $50. I put it off for a long time.
Oh man,
you want to get serious.
You want to get one of these? These are what I use. These are only about. I forget. They're certainly not that. Let me just bring up my camera. No, they're I don't know. They're probably about 10. Yeah. And it's this is a particular brand. I mean, there's a cheap Chinese brand type thing, Xiacom, and it's just got a 3.5mm jack on either end, and then you just put that into the. It comes with a little jack lead about this long, so you plug that into the instrument, and then your output into that, and it kills the ground loop straight away.
Oh wow! Yeah, but this also takes care of the power noise, and
that weird, computer.
Because I tried other options, and removing the ground, and it wasn't a ground loop problem that I was having problems with,
right?
Like with the Prophet. So this did take care of it, thankfully.
Yeah, I tell you, I had a scare last night because I was wiring in all of that back into to the mixer audio stuff, and I plugged it all in, and I put it into the mixer here on my desk, turned the volume up, and there was this where the fuck is that coming from? So I'm going through cables, is everything connected right? And then I realised what it was is that I bought that ESI 16-port MIDI hub. It's all lit up because it's USB powered, but if you want to if you're driving anything else from it, you have to have the power supply connected. And as soon as I turned the power supply on, all the noise went, and it was just like, there we go, that's much better. So
I was guilty of a terrible schoolboy error the other day, and I don't know whether I should be actually kicked out of the Facebook group because of this. I was wiring things up, and I was on the Prophet 6, and like when I was playing the keys, I couldn't hear anything. So foolishly, I decided to crank the gains up. Like as high as they go, and I could hear all this like noise like going. I thought, well, there's something there, and then it occurred to me that because I used the Prophet 6 as my controller keyboard, I turned local off.
Get out, right? He's insta-ban.
I decided to turn it back on without putting the gains back down.
Oh no!
And I nearly blew myself into the bathroom.
Was a Marty McFly moment there?
Oh, definitely. I just couldn't believe how stupid I was.
Oh dear. Yeah, I was doing that yesterday where I was plugging stuff in. I'd not turned gains up on the line mixers or something. I was going, oh shit, where's the sound gone? Oh, I haven't turned that on. And there it was. Just simple stuff, isn't it? Anyway, so there you go. That's the Volca sample, version 2. Out now, I believe, with an app coming shortly. I'm kind of the one I like, obviously, or the one I'd like to have a play with, is the Volca FM. However, the 3-voice polyphony sounds very limiting, and the fact that key velocity, I know it's been sorted out in a third-party firmware hack, but it didn't respond to MIDI velocity over the MIDI import, which was just like, well, that's kind of that's like everything about FM is all about velocity and using that to control. Yeah, so
it's a pretty fundamental feature to have, isn't it? Really?
I understand you have to kind of keep things, keep the cost down, but at what that expense now. Anyway, so that's the Volca sample. Let's do this one, because this interests me. I'm a huge fan of multi-channel audio. So 5.1 mixes of stuff, of which there are some really good ones coming out in the next few weeks. I'm a massive fan of that stuff. So anything that kind of talks about surround sound in music or movies or anything like that, I'm into. And Steinberg have just released this thing called Immerse, powered by Embody, and it's a spatial audio artificial intelligence plugin that only costs around 150, 160 pounds, which is pretty good. But the great thing about this is that you pair it up with an app, and you take a picture of your right ear, and it scans the details, the shape of your ear, and gives you an HRTF based on the scan of your ear, so that then the sound is is personalized to a point. And it's this plugin that allows you to move sounds around and create spatial audio, but not just in your regular 5.1 or 7.2 or whatever format you might be working in full kind of 360 type of ambisonic kind of thing. Does anybody make music in using multi-channel audio, or are you all stereo guys?
Strictly stereo here, but I'm willing to experiment.
Marshall, have you ever dabbled in multi-channel audio for any of your work?
No, it's always been stereo, but it would be an interesting thing to try, for sure.
I think. Go ahead.
Well, because with the way things are with VR, you could develop like a musical experience in VR and have this cool spatial audio situation going on. I remember the Microsoft HoloLens kind of did some of that as well, although that's more of augmented reality. But you could have like the little holograms, like one way over here somewhere and one behind you, and the sound would be kind of directional.
Yeah.
Is it like that? Is it like kind of audio virtual reality? Would the positions of things move if it could detect your movement?
If the way you move, in relation to where you've placed objects in your room or wherever it will adapt to that. So which is cool. That was one of the cool things about that whole setup. With the HoloLens.
I like, I've got a PSVR downstairs, and there are some games that are just brilliant with, I think it's binaural audio, so they've been recorded in such a way. So when you do move your head, if somebody's talking in front of you and you go like that, then all of a sudden it's coming out of that side. So it's all very positional, and it really does it makes for a much more immersive experience. I've always been old school. I actually used to have a 5.1 system in this room, but I just ran out of space and I had to kind of dismantle it. But I'm all about having the speakers. My wife hates me for having all these speakers around the front room downstairs.
Synths are fine, speakers no, right?
Yeah. But there have been some real leaps and bounds in delivering multi-channel audio through just a set of regular headphones. DTSX is an example, where they do, I think it's 11.2 audio. So you've got the regular center, front left, and rear right. Then you've got mid surround backs. You've got height, and you've got lower stuff as well. And then you've got the sub channels. And whilst it's not as accurate, I would say that having wired speakers is a pretty good experience, and I think this kind of feeds into that. Cryss, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember maybe in the late 90s or early 2000s that in a wrong crowd here, but Pearl Jam did an album called Binaural, which was recorded in a binaural fashion.
Yeah.
Not the augmented reality looking around type of stuff, but using the dummy head with the ears and all that to have that sound. It was an interesting album. But of course with the technology, kind of covering, I think the technology of how to create, not just by position of sound of having more speakers, but with just a stereo source to be able to move sound and have the phase shift change as it goes around, or the tonal cues that your earlobes cause, things behind you darker versus brighter in front of you. Those type of aspects of it is quite fascinating, and I would expect that this kind of technology and way to listen to music would continue to develop and grow more popular. Of course, these days, I mean, stereo is so popular that I think it'll perhaps take quite a long while before this really gets to be a big thing, but it's interesting and it's great to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with multi-channel surround sound is that a lot of people poo-poo the idea because they think, particularly with music, because they've understood how it works in movies. So, with a movie soundtrack, you have a center channel that locks dialogue to the screen, which is what you want in a film, because you're going to be always looking in that one direction, so you want the dialogue locked there. So people think about, well, I don't want my lead vocalist to be stuck over there, and but anybody that mixes 5.1, and there are some really good 5.1 audio mixes out there, they use the speakers to just kind of enhance and break out all the components, so that there's an image. It doesn't matter where you're looking, you're still getting this kind of fuller, better sound. And I often think we're kind of blinkered that stereo has been around, like you say, for such a long time. Everybody's got 2 speakers, 2 headphones, because they think it's kind of like the natural way to listen to stuff, but it isn't. Because when you're outside or wherever, what you're hearing is coming from all around. Yeah. And so having multiple speakers or multiple points of audio input is more natural than just having a left and a right.
I like the idea of like sometimes we fade parts in, like you might fade in an arpeggio or a sequence or something, to have it coming from a certain point and moving over, passing over. That'd be amazing. That'd be really good. But what concerns me is it's mainly built for like headphones, isn't it? Yeah. What happens to your mixes? If somebody isn't listening to it on headphones, maybe listening to it in a club or something, does the mix go to shit? Like, because
I've seen artists release multiple formats. I mean, I think Pink Floyd and some other people have done that as well, where you buy an album set and it comes in the stereo and it comes in 5.1 and this and that version. Right. That's probably what you have to do, but again, with the software being able to do it, in fact, I think Asio has just commented on this. You only got 2 years, and that was kind of the point that I was making before. Is like our source of hearing is just stereo. What makes it surround is the phase relationship and the EQ and other audio cues like reflections off of walls, that kind of stuff. So with headphones, it should be very easy to implement this kind of stuff. It's when you get into surround sound speaker arrays where it's a little more involved.
So when you mix music for 5.1, you're mixing it. Obviously, you have to take the source material into consideration. I've got Queen's Night at the Opera, and so it's got Bohemian Rhapsody, and that in 5.1 is just mind blowing, because particularly bits like the Galileo Figaro, and then it's kind of just moving around you, but it's not moving so that it's not playing over there, but it is playing over there. It's just that the emphasis is being moved around, and there's stuff like, but there's lots of pop music, so Ultravox's Vienna album is coming out in October in a 5.1 mix. Tears for Fears, Seeds of Love will be joining Songs from the Big Chair, which is one of the best 5.1 mixes you'll hear. Stephen Wilson has just released all sorts of stuff in 5.1. Roxy Music, their first album, which is just brilliant, that's been done in 5.1. It's just revelatory. But it has to be done properly. But I know Asia had said in the room, in the chat room there, that you only have 2 ears, and so your brain creates a 3D image using those 2 audio sources, and so you don't need a surround setup to listen to music naturally. But when you listen to music, forget headphones. If you're listening to music, coming out of a set of speakers, you're not just, you know, the left speaker doesn't speak to the left ear and the right speaker doesn't speak to the right ear. It's what you're hearing is the sound bouncing all around, and that's what the multi-channel setup will, you know, replicate better, in my opinion.
But I think the point is that you can replicate that with headphones and a stereo setup. Because,
yes, with headphones, yeah.
Again, like if you identify a source over here, your brain is calculating the phase relationship because the geometry to this ear and this ear is different. So there's an offset, plus it's going to be louder on this ear, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Hasn't Roland gone into this in the past with that, like RSS or something? Yeah, and that was like delaying the signals slightly, wasn't it? So they hit you a little bit later, and that gives you the perception that it's in a different
what it was doing is, like Cryss is saying, you know, it's delaying sounds coming out of certain sides of the speaker to replicate that delay between, you know, the left ear and the right ear, and also the way that the sound bounces off the, you know, the shape of your ear, because, you know, they say that your the shape of your ear is almost as unique as your fingerprint. You know, it's very unique.
Yeah, I watched their little video on the how they do the ear scan thing by taking a picture, but I wonder how much does that really affect. I mean, if I put on a profile for your ear, Robbie, would it sound totally different? Like, you know, I wonder how big of a difference it would make.
I've personally not tested it, but every kind of thing that I've read about binaural sound and surround sound suggests that yes, if your HTRF is, you know, if I'm listening through something that's configured to your HTRF into my ears, it will sound different to my HTRF through my ears, because you know, everybody's ears are different sizes, everybody's ear canals are slightly different widths or lengths, or, you know, the older you are, you're missing certain frequencies, and so, and men's ears, you know, isn't that just like the only part of our body that doesn't stop growing throughout our entire life? So our ears get, you know, the outer ear gets bigger, and that has to have an effect, you know. So I guess there is, I don't know how much. I mean, I'd love to sit down and listen to lots of things like that. I just don't have the time to do that. But yeah, it's interesting stuff. But anyway, sorry.
That would be fun to like try other people's. Yeah. And see how because theoretically, then, especially with headphones, you're not really using. I mean, I guess the inner ear would be different still, but you'd be like, oh, this is how Robbie hears this music or whatever.
Yeah, you know? I don't know. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, one thing I've always liked to do is you get two lavalier mics, and you just clip them on your collar so that they're kind of facing out, so they're not rubbing on anything, and then plug that into a recorder and go out into the world, and, you know, especially in a noisy environment, and just record, and then go home and plug your headphones in and listen to it, and it's 3D, and it's
exactly the same.
It's brilliant, and to me that's just amazing. I know it's, you know, it's completely explainable, but it's just like, wow, that's so cool. And actually, there was a friend of mine some years ago who produced an album. I've just managed to find it. It was deleted for a long while, and he's managed to bring it back up. So his name is Steve Marshall. He's based down in the West Country of England, and he has a fascination with all things kind of West Country heritage, like Glastonbury and the Stones and all this kind of stuff. So he likes to go out and do field recordings, and as you can see here, he's got like soundscapes. So he'll set some microphones up in the middle of these kind of Neolithic stones, and then make noises and just record how it bounces off of these things. But he made an album called By Location, and he recorded it binaurally. So he did all of these recordings binaurally, all around the world, different things, and it's stunning. I mean, he recorded a police helicopter going over the top of a building, and you just sat there, and this thing is here. You can hear it. It's fantastic. But he then used what was cutting-edge technology back in the sort of early 2000s to translate that to a 5.1 system. But it was one of those things where you literally, it even provided you with a map in the sleeve of the CD of how to position yourself, and you did have to kind of sit in that sweet spot all the time to get the full effect. But yeah, I mean, it's available. You know, you can get it there, £7 for By Location 1. It's a really, really great experience. But, you know, particularly of an evening, maybe you've had a few glasses, or you know, and it's just, yeah, you're in another world. It's fantastic. Right, Immerse. I'm sure it is Immerse, but it's called Immerse, and it's from Steinberg, and it's available now. There's a trial version, and I think it's about, let's look at the price, £162 UK. But you do need a smartphone to create your HRTF profile. So there you go. What should we do next? Well, I'll tell you what, we're half an hour into the show. Let's go and talk to our special guest, Mr. Marshal Arnold. I'm going to hand over to Cryss. I've got a question that I'm going to ask Marshal a little bit later on, but I'm sure that Cryss will probably get to that at some point. So, Cryss, if you'd like to kick us off with our interrogation of our guest.
Yeah. We had a good time talking with Aaron last week, and I've been looking forward to having you, Marshal, on. And, we talk about synthesizers, once a month on Jamie's show and have a good time. But I really wanted to hear about how you got into music. I've watched some of the fantastic interviews you've done on your channel with like Adamski and with Jamie Morden, and heard a little bit about your background. I kind of gathered by the clues that you and I had started making music at around the same time anyway. But yeah, I mean, how did it start for you? How did you get going with it?
So what got me the most interested in figuring out music in general was I was in a club one time. I was like 18, something like that. And they were playing this trance music, and I was just like, this is amazing. So that's when I was like, I want to figure out how this is made, because this is like the coolest thing I've ever heard in my life. So I thought it was all done on computers. I didn't even know like what a synthesizer was really. Mm-hmm. I just referred to everything with keys on it as a keyboard, right? Oh, it's a keyboard. And so the definition of synthesizer I didn't know what it, like, honestly, like, the differentiation between sounds you can make with these types of machines, and that's what they use. But I didn't know that then. So I started looking around on the internet for programs, and this was back in like 2001. And I found this program called DreamStation, which is a 3-oscillator synthesizer, basically, like similar to Mini Moog setup, standard 3-oscillator synth. And it had a built-in tracker with an 8-channel audio mixer, so you could write your compositions and then layer everything up and do your mixing, and you have a song. So that's kind of what I started with, and that's what kind of kicked it off.
So that's interesting. I for some reason I had thought you had started a little bit early. I got started in the early 90s, but hearing all this trance music, and of course I guess you would probably mostly be identified with making psytrance. And let me ask you first, what is the distinction? What makes psytrance psytrance?
So psytrance, I'm actually kind of new to trying to make. My original goal was to make just really nice melodic style trance. And the psytrance, it was a genre that was kind of popular back when I started as well, but it was kind of still a little more underground. But within the last couple of years, like I've heard like some really great things. Like there's a guy named Asterix is pretty good. Infected Mushroom, of course. There's all these groups that do psytrance. Now, what makes it psytrance, I think, is from what I understand, and I'm still kind of experimenting with how that genre works, really. But the idea is you make kind of psychedelic-y, spacey kind of sounds, along with a pretty fast bass line that doesn't always change a whole lot. Although it's more about kind of the groove and the patterns that you make in the bass than note variation. That's kind of what I take away from it, anyways.
Mm-hmm. So you had really started with computer, and thankfully at the time, soft synthesizers were just beginning to come out. How long was it before you started transitioning into using hardware as well?
So hardware was something I always thought, like, okay, well, like the professionals use hardware. And this was at the time when if you were doing all your stuff on a computer, like it was kind of like that, you weren't legit, right? Unless you had some hardware that you were using. So I try to get into the hardware stuff as soon as I could. And of course, when I started, I mean, I was in my early 20s then and didn't have any money to really buy anything. So it took me until I think 2006. So I started kind of with the DreamStation application in 01, and then by 2006 I bought my first synthesizer.
And what did you buy for the first one?
So the first thing I bought was an MS-2000B, and I had it for a day, and I took it back, and I got an SH-201 instead, which is kind of ridiculous now that I understand the difference, but I didn't know what I was doing. Even the little DreamStation application, I just moved stuff around and was like, well, this kind of does this. I kind of like this sound, but I didn't really know what I was doing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So when I got an actual synthesizer, the MS-2000 was way more complicated than I was comfortable with, and the SH-201 was a lot easier to understand for me at the time. So.
And you talked about going into a club and hearing trance and that really sparking it. Was that obviously going to a venue where everything is just really pumping, like a live concert or to a club? Were you listening to that type of music before, or just whatever's on the radio?
No, yeah. So because I grew up in Colorado, and there was not any kind of radio station or anything that played any kind of just electronic music. Like now it's easy to find now, especially with the internet and satellite radio and stuff. Yeah. Back then, the only real kind of exposure to anything kind of like that even was on like the weekends on one of the main radio stations out there. Later at night, like at like 10 or 11, they would do these long like DJ mashup mixes, like remixes almost of the popular songs that were on the radio. But it wasn't really techno. It was more house, I guess, kind of housey. I don't know how to explain that. But it wasn't until I met a guy, and this was all kind of around the same time, a person that I had met was really into this techno and trance stuff, and he kind of exposed me to some of that. But it didn't really hit me until we went into that club, and I was like immersed in just the sound and the ambience of everything. Yeah. And that was when I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to make that.
Well, you are certainly doing it these days.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about music making for you currently. As far as I'm sure the guys will ask you about gear, and I know already some of the stuff that you use, and you got very nice gear. But what about as far as composing? When we first, I guess. I don't want to say if met is the right word, but we got to start getting to know each other around the time the Moog 1 came out, and kind of talking back and forth. And I was watching your videos and seeing you do trance music, which was way outside of my world. And I just found it fascinating because your workflow and everything else was so foreign to my guitar stuff, that I found it interesting and quite enlightening at points about how you did stuff. So tell us a little bit about how you compose these days.
So I'm an Ableton user, so that's the DAW that I primarily work out of these days. And the cool thing about Ableton is I can work in 8 or 16 bar loops and kind of make I can make I call it kind of like the meat and potatoes. Like I can build up all these tracks going in these sections, and then from there I can experiment with, okay, well, so for the intro we're going to start here, so we take out all this stuff. Maybe we just start with the bass line and something simple, and we kind of build towards the meat and potatoes part, and then kind of do a little bit of a change up, or a break or a bridge or whatever, and then back into the main part, and then an outro. So, but yeah, it's essentially working in smaller sections to build up the main bits, and then kind of go from there.
So, like song structure wise, it's not too far off from, say, traditional pop or rock music as far as like, section A, section B, section A, section A, B, C,
Yep.
B, A, or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're working a little more in, I record on Logic, so I'd be thinking about it. You're working out songs a little more vertically rather than horizontally first.
Right. Now that's yes. But the only reason for that is because I can do that in Ableton, and because I started with trackers. Like for some reason that makes sense. Oh, I get this section, I build this up, and then I can make other sections that way. But after I got off that DreamStation application, I went to Reason. This is like Reason 2.5. So I definitely learned the other way as well.
Yeah.
What we see now in most modern DAWs, you have the arrangement view or whatever you would call it, and in the linear way. But I would still kind of do the same. I would still kind of do the same thing. I would still start and build my main kind of 8/16 bars, but it's just a little different way to do it. But it's kind of the same process. I've still kind of followed the same process regardless of how the interface works in the DAW.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I've had a certain way of writing songs for many years, and as I started getting into synthesizers, I was thinking, and also spending a lot more time with my DAW, thinking like, well, there are probably other ways that you can do this. And I'm thinking, I mean, at some point you're writing section by section, but I was thinking about it a little more, I guess like you said, linear in time. Like, okay, I'm going to get the basics of section A, section B, section C. Now I've got the song outlined. Now I'll kind of populate like what's the bass going to do throughout this, or what's the rhythm guitar, where's the lead go, that kind of thing. So I always kind of find this interesting, other ways of writing music. And that was one that I had, I don't know if it was because I had seen you do it in a video, perhaps it was, but to try to like, what if I write a section and populate it and then think about what section will come next? So
Right.
I don't know.
But it works really well for the dance, style music that I like to make anyways, because it is very, you can make a very progressive style track where you start slow and you work towards a build up, bring it down, build it up, and I don't know, it works really well for that. And there's ways like this, that's just how I've decided to do it, because I know that there's a lot of dance music also that's pretty static, if you will. It's it goes just on and on and on, and maybe small changes here and there. But I like to have like the big, huge, I'm gonna blow your face off with all this sound, and then I'm gonna take it away, and then I'm gonna bring it back, and hopefully make it dynamic enough to where you're still listening by that point, But
yeah, and I would just back that up, because I think with any sort of electronic, music involving synthesizers, there's always that kind of balance that you have to work with, because there's some great ambient music, but sometimes it doesn't go anywhere, or you got things that are very straight. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and some of that's like, I'm in the mood for some ambient, so I'll put on some ambient. Today I want to listen to something with a little more energy. Maybe I'll listen to something else, So there's definitely, and the cool thing about the trance music, in my opinion, is you can meld a lot of these different styles into it as well. So when I work on a track, I try and design the soundscape to be very deep. So I want to have some cool ambient stuff maybe in the background, as well. So
yeah. Well, I appreciated that your music was so interesting, because, well, like I appreciated some of the aesthetics of different modern electronic music, because most of the stuff I was exposed to was more like 70s, 80s, or that had come across in my time being a musician. But when it came to the music that was out at the time, like when I was in high school, of that, that side of music. I mean, you may have like rock, and then you have like the pop and hip hop, and then the electronic stuff. But most of the electronic stuff that I heard it just didn't really hold my interest because they weren't using some of those songwriting dynamics, and that was something that I noticed in your music, that you had a place to go and you had different rooms to go in, if you will, or different places to visit along the journey.
Right.
And I had always really enjoyed that, and so I was very curious to ask you about your process.
Yeah, I think of it as like a digital orchestra. That's kind of how I think about it. And when you go and you listen to a symphony or an orchestra or something, you've got your highs and your lows, and they bring you along through a musical journey, just like you said. Yeah.
So I've got a question, and I'm going to bring this into a video that you've just recently posted up. So we're talking about your compositional work and how you come up with ideas. And and I think this thing that you've got hold of as a beta tester is probably one of the finest kind of pieces of inspirational hardware that I've seen in a long while, and this is this Blue Arp DM, which originally started as a plugin, and the developer now has created a hardware module. Let me just show the guys. So this is your video that you've got on YouTube at the moment, and I'll just play it. I'm not entirely sure how much audio everyone in the show will hear. Certainly the audience will hear this. So this is a pre-production model that you've got here, and you've got it hooked up to a TD3.
It's going to Virus TI2, a Waldorf Kyra, the TD3, and then a JP8080.
Okay.
So I'm running 4 synths off of it.
There you go,
Yeah.
So literally all you're doing here is just holding down notes on the keyboard, and then all of this arpeggiation and patterns and stuff is all coming from the Blue Arp.
From the Blue Arp.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and the controller is connected. So I'm using that Novation controller. It's bus powered. It's powered by Blue Arp.
Right.
So I have a USB cable plugged from the controller into Blue Arp, and then I've got 5-pin MIDI that goes out to the synths, and then I've got. I also have a USB connection from Blue Arp into the computer because I'm doing some processing with Ableton.
Okay.
But the main control is coming from my controller keyboard, and literally, what you do, if you're familiar with the Blue Arp app VST, which is a free arpeggiator plugin that I've been using for a long time. It's the same exact thing, but there's 8 instances of it here.
Okay.
So you create your patterns, and then you literally play your chord progressions, and it arpeggiates the notes, or sequence. Because you can do step sequencing as well.
Right.
But it's not like I program in this sequence and then it's just going to play back, unless you latch it like an arpeggiator latch.
Yeah.
You have to trigger it with your chord, with your fingers.
Yeah.
On the controller.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So there's still obviously a human input level to this. It's not doing everything. It's not like press one button, make a hit song. You actually have to do stuff.
It's designed. Oleg Mikheyev is the developer of this, and he said, he's designed this specifically with the intention of it being used as a live performance tool. So, and that's exactly what it is. So.
I must admit, I'm sorely tempted. I got the plugin because we featured the plugin. I think when Oleg posted a video maybe a month or 2 ago, demonstrating it, and we featured it, and we spoke about the plugin. I got it there and then. I have to say it's not hugely intuitive. It's not like instant. You have to really kind of learn it, and for somebody that's lazy like myself. I'm going to have to sit down and properly do it. But this little box looks amazing. I don't suppose you know roughly what kind of ballpark figure this is going to cost, do you? Or?
I have no idea what this.
Because it looks fairly small, but it's got a couple of screens on there, and there's clearly some effort's gone into this. Is he building them himself?
I believe so. Yeah, I think he's designed the PCBs, and he's doing this. I think he built. This unit that I have here, he built.
Wow.
So, once he starts opening things up for more orders, I'm not sure how that's going to work on that end, or how much he'll be charging, but hopefully he'll have some info on that soon. Right now, He's focusing on just making sure that the UI works well, and any kind of missing features or things that kind of need to maybe be arranged differently or worded a little differently here and there kind of thing, to give a general flow to the device. So anyway, it's coming along really well, and ever since I got it, I have not had a single problem with it. So it's more just some real minor things so far in my experience with it, that just more GUI type stuff, and maybe a couple features here and there that I think it could use.
Cool.
But yeah.
Well, Oleg posted over on KVR today and linked to your video. If you haven't seen it, he said, "This is a very special moment for me. This is the first time someone else except me uses the Blue Art DM to perform live. Check out this great performance by Marshal Arnold." And he said, "This is a pre-production unit. Marshall does a great job with testing it and giving me a lot of valuable feedback." I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that is cool. I didn't see that. So awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah, Oleg's been great to work with, and I when I found the plugin, because I was like, I get tired of synths that don't let you edit the arpeggiator, and they give you your stock ARP styles, up, down, left, right, up, down, backwards, forwards. That's what I mean. But anyway, there's only a handful of synths that I own that you can really dig in and change the arpeggiator patterns around. So I was like, well, what if I just use a plugin and send those to my synths for my productions? And that's how I found the Blue Arp application, and I really liked it. So I reached out to Oleg and I said, "Hey, can I interview you for my YouTube channel?" And he agreed. And so yeah, and then at that time I think he had just kind of started thinking about conceptually a hardware version. This was like 2017. So he's been working on it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Another benefit of that plugin idea as well is that you've only got one ARP system to master for your entire setup, isn't it?
Exactly.
You don't have to learn it for each individual machine.
And all the clock syncing.
And you can. The cool thing is, you can set up splits and all these kind of things. So like in the video that I did, my right hand is playing kind of pads, and the left hand is doing bass and the TD3. So I mean, and the other thing is, this is where it's different than the VST, because the VST you substantiate all your instances as you need them or whatever. But since this is designed to have all 8 of these, he's implemented something called meta chains, where you can actually, with the push of one of these buttons at the bottom, switch the entire chain up, not only with the pattern, but you can send patch bank changes to your synths. You can do all these kind of things. So you could legit like do a whole like hours worth of music that you change. You can have that level of control through this, which is really cool.
Yeah, it looks really, really cool. So looking forward to that one coming out and seeing more of how you use it and how others use it. Should we go back and do some topics and give Marshall a break? So let's see, what should we do now? I'll tell you what, let's do this, because I'm kind of conscious that I've got a few things open on my desktop here, because I want to do this thing here, and then I want to shut them down because they're probably going to affect the stream. So let's get this one out of the way. So you might remember that some while ago I spoke about Bluetooth MIDI adapters from CME, and CME have been doing Bluetooth controllers and the like for a while, and they came up with this concept of a virtual MIDI cable. So basically a MIDI Bluetooth MIDI connector that could connect to Bluetooth devices such as your Mac or your PC, but also peer-to-peer, so one synth to another synth, or a synth to a drum machine, or what have you. They have finally arrived, and I ordered 4 of these because they were if you pre-ordered early on, you got them at half price, which is like $29. So that's about £25 each. So it's about £100 for 4 sets. There's another one here, and they got kind of held up in postage over the last month or so, but they finally arrived, and here it is. So this is the main unit. So it's just maybe 1.5 inches long with the MIDI plug, and that goes into your MIDI out port, and this then draws power from the MIDI port on your system. And then there is this little dongly bit which has a 2.5mm jack on one end and another MIDI plug on the other end, and that just plugs into a small socket on the side. So then this is your MIDI in and out just here. So lots of people are very skeptical about Bluetooth MIDI because of latency and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, well, if these don't work as they claim they're going to work, then I've not lost a huge amount of money. But they were very insistent that they could get this to work really well. And you know what? It does. I've been trying these out. I'm just going to bring this up here. So I've been trying these out across my studio for the last few days, and I've had them connected to synthesizers, I've had them connected to drum machines and samplers, and there's been there is latency, but it's completely unnoticeable. You just really cannot hear it. It's very good. Now, granted, I'm in a room that's 10 foot by 8 foot or something, and there's not a lot of interference going on, so it's prime conditions. However, this your mileage might vary in like a situation in a club or an arena or what have you. But I don't know how well this is going to work. I just dug out my Alesis perk pad. Should get the light on it there. So it's just a little 4-pad thing, and the reason I'm using drums is because drum latency, or latency in drumming, e-drumming, is very important. Obviously because of timing and stuff. But I thought this might be a better way of kind of showing it, an easy way of showing it. So there's your MIDI unit, or WIDI Master, and that just plugs into the WIDI port just like that, and then you turn on the device and you can see that, hopefully, I don't know if it's a bit too bright, there's a little blue flashing light there. And so all you then do is then just, if there's another WIDI Master plugged into another synthesizer, it will automatically pair up with whatever else is out there. But if you want to pair it up with your computer, you just go into the relevant screen on your Mac or your PC and pair this up, and then hopefully we'll be able to. So I've got my Superior Drummer application here, and I'm just going to see. I need to change the MIDI import. I should have done this. This is not very professional. So. MIDI in, and we choose that, and we go there. Now the only downside I found of this is obviously when you power these devices off, then obviously the connection gets lost, and any kind of setting so it's not like a cable that stays plugged in permanently. You kind of have to reconnect them and reassign them every time you power on. So in that respect, it's a little clunky. But hopefully, we'll be able to get some sound. So that's receiving that. So let's see. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get the audio into. Can you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Yep. So I apologise if any of this gets feedback. Or some kind of audio feedback, but I don't know how this is going to work in terms of demonstrating the near zero latency. He sounds like Muttley laughing in the background. So hopefully you can hear the stick and the drum sound as well. Can you hear that they're both happening at exactly the same time? Is that perceivable?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's literally the latency, which is the big thing that everyone was, dubious of. So far, is virtually unnoticeable. And I've just been blown away by how easy these things are, except for one little thing. And Ben will know all about it because I moaned at him the other day. So, I don't know if you can see this on the camera. Let me see if I can get a light. So, so you see where the CE mark is here, which is the European kind of thing. Just to the side of that, there's a little round button. Okay, and it's just on the corner, on the edge of this thing. Now, when I see a button, I have to press it because I've got to find out what it does. Because I'm thinking, if there's a button, it does something cool, right? So I thought,
look at the position he's frozen in. Oh, he's back.
Oh,
Are you back?
I'm back. Sorry, did you lose me? Oh, where did you?
Yeah,
have I been talking to myself? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, you started pushing that button and then it all went dead.
There you go. That's what it is. It's the button. Tell you what, let me just shut this. I think what I'm doing is I'm caning my system at the moment because I've got Superior Drummer open with a big old sample drum kit going on in there as well. So let me just shut all of that down. Hopefully that will improve things. So I press this button. It put it into a test mode. The only way to get it out of the test mode is to use their app, which is available currently on the website. And so I go to the website and expecting a link to the App Store because I'm all Apple here. Oh no, Android only at the moment. Do I have an Android device? Well, yeah, I do, but it's about 10 years old and is, I think, the latest version of Android is 10 or 11. I think this one's about 4 or 5.
10.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm like version 5 on this really old handset that my daughter used to have. Doesn't work with the app, so I have to go around to my mother-in-law's and I have to take my TX7 because it's like the smallest piece of mains-powered MIDI hardware that I've got, and take that over there and plug this in and sit at her kitchen table, resetting all of these and updating the firmware. But that's my only quibble. The iOS app is due in about 2 weeks, and then there is going to be a desktop app as well. So that's good. It'll all be covered. But if you do buy one of these, don't press the button. They have addressed it though, and again, this is the brilliance of CME. They're very responsive. They've already changed the firmware, which you can download via this app. And the latest version means that when you press this button, you have to press and hold it for 10 seconds, I think, or 5 seconds, something like that. You've got to mean to press it, so if you just tap it, it doesn't do anything. You have to kind of press and hold, and because it kind of sits flush with the rest of the body, you really do have to kind of give it a bit of oomph. So there you go. WIDI Master from CME, and let me just bring up their page because you can buy them now, although the shipping is going to take a little while, I'm afraid, because they're still fulfilling all of the orders that the pre-orders and then the post pre-orders, I think, is their thing. So yeah, get in there now. It's $59 for one of these. So whatever that equates to in your local currency.
Quick question there, Robbie.
Yeah.
So you bought 4 of those.
I did.
Because when I saw you posting about this, I was like, ooh, yeah, I could use some, not as many MIDI cables in my life. Mm-hmm. And you bought multiples, so they're intelligent enough to where you can use, like, you got 4 of them there and then not get like mixed up.
Yeah. So like any Bluetooth device, it has its own MAC address, and so therefore, once you've so for example, I've paired this up with my Mac. I then have now 4 instances of these, and each one relates to this. One of the other little quirky things is that you can't rename it. I think this is a Mac thing, not a WIDI Master thing. But I tried to change the name, so I was going to put little numbers on each of them so I could remember which was which in the setup. But when you shut the MIDI Studio down in your Mac and say reboot, for example, it just reverts back to WIDI Master. So you just have 4 instances of WIDI Master. So I had all 4 plugged in to, I think I had most of my DXs all plugged into this, and you just plug them in, hit the connect button. They're all then independently connected to the Mac, and I was then able to open Logic, and pick them out and have them playing lots of different things with no interference or no kind of crossover. So yeah.
Thinking long term though, Robbie, this power up sequence that you've got to follow.
Yeah.
Aren't they bringing out a hub?
Yes.
So obviously, once that hub comes out, you must be able to save configurations. You must be able to. It's got to be something that they address in the firmware.
Yeah, I hope so.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I hope so. They're really kind of going for it. So you've got this. There's also the WIDI jack is the next thing that is being worked on. I'm just waiting for the website to catch up here. So the WIDI jack, I'll just put this onto the topic screen. This is a small square device. It's probably about 2 inches by 2 inches. It's quite small, and again, this is designed for use with USB and TRS MIDI connectors, which of course are increasingly popular on a lot of the these smaller USB desktop synths. And so this will just then attach itself. So here's an example with an Arturia and an Electron device. So you just kind of stick it on the back and have these two short jack cables. What I'm hoping is that because even though the MIDI Association has defined a standard for TRS jacks with MIDI, and the standard is 2.5mm, a lot of companies, including Arturia and Korg, are using 3.5mm. So I'm hoping that the way they get round this is that the unit might just have a standard 3.5mm jack on there, but these little patch cables will come in slightly different forms. So that'll make that hopefully that's how they're going to do it. This is the WIDI jack, which is used for TRS MIDI connections, and then the next project that they've said they're going to work on is this WIDI hub. So it's kind of just like you plug it into a USB socket on something, and it's just like a central connection point for all your Wi-Fi MIDI, Bluetooth MIDI stuff. So yeah.
Aaron is asking, would these MIDI devices work without a computer? Like, could I use them with my MIDI Solutions MIDI splitters?
So that's my next test. I've got a Yamaha MEP4 there, which is an old MIDI effects processor. So you can have one input and 4 outputs, and it does all sorts of weird and wonderful MIDI effects. So I'm going to try using that with splitting it around and doing different things. I mean, at the moment, all I've tested it is on multiple individual synthesizers, all connected to the Mac, and also synthesizer to synthesizer. So if I put this in the DX7 and another one in the DX5, they'll connect to each other. No computer necessary. They'll just literally, they say, oh, I've just seen another WIDI Master, I'm going to connect to that. And then you've got however you want to configure it. So you can put the out into one and the in into the other, and not use there's no computer necessary at all. The only thing that you need a computer for, or a tablet or a mobile device, is the configuration firmware updates. So there you go. That's WIDI Master, and I'm very impressed so far with that one. And available now, I think it's 59. Let me just bring that over. What we got here? Order WIDI Master now.
I'm just curious. Didn't was it Roland or Yamaha or somebody had some kind of something similar?
Yeah, Yamaha did. I don't know if Roland, they may have done, but Yamaha they've kind of been the one to look for, and they have two fairly long plugs, one for in, one for out. But I've heard that there were slight issues with latency with that one. I don't know how it is now, whether they've updated it. But there have been others. This isn't a first for sure. But I think a lot of people got very worried that the latency would be a thing. Well, so far it isn't. But of course, I was talking to Ben about this. They've got keytars, and this would be a really good thing for somebody who wants to be mobile on stage. But of course, in a live venue, you've got maybe wireless mics operating off a 2.4 gigahertz frequency, which this does because it's Bluetooth. you've probably got a Wi-Fi network or two. You've probably got lots of people with mobile devices in the room, all trying to connect to 2.4 gigahertz or Bluetooth this or Bluetooth that. Bluetooth's pretty stable, but it'd be interesting to see how it performs in a congested environment, so to speak.
Well, I was going to say, when you posted about this in the group today, and there was a little bit of concern from some members saying, what about when you're in a live environment and everybody's Bluetoothing on the phones and everything? How many gigs do you go to and feel the need to Bluetooth up to something else? You don't, do you?
Exactly.
The most you do is take a photograph.
You should be watching the show, not pairing your Bluetooth devices.
I think, I mean, I think Wi-Fi is and other wireless stuff in the environment. So whether it's your wireless mics, maybe you've got a guitarist on wireless. I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I don't think anybody has done a real world test at the moment because we can't. You know, we haven't got anybody playing in venues with a few hundred or a few thousand people where you can test this out. But let's see. I just bought them because I thought I've got all this shit, and I've got MIDI cables just running all over the place, and it would just be nice to have less cables. And also, I've got the MS-101 over there. I'm going to get a battery pack for that fucker, and I'm going to move around and play it like I wanted to 30 odd years ago with the original, so to speak. So yeah, there you go. So there you go, WIDI Master from CME, available now from cme-pro.com for $59. Shipping is extra, and of course duties as well. That's the other thing. Is a lot of people, I didn't thankfully, but a lot of people have been stung with import duties. But they are working on their process of shipping, but they all come from Singapore. So.
But before we move on, have you tried recording with the WIDI to see what the latency actually looks like? No,
but somebody has, and they hooked it up to their Roland TD something or other V-drum kit. They said outright that they were 30 meters away from the door, and according to this, they're only claiming a range of 20 meters without obstruction. So 30 meters is a bit of a stretch. So he did this thing and he recorded it with MIDI cables and a WIDI Master, and there was just slight differences in timing with the Bluetooth, but literally nothing that couldn't be instantly fixed with a quantize function. Yeah. But in terms of performance, I mean, I was playing with these pads pretty much all day yesterday, and trying to do rolls and fills and all sorts of things, and it was taking it all and doing it all pretty much in time. But yeah, I need to set up a project and I mean, I could set up my drums. My drums are downstairs, but there's a few brick walls, so that's really not going to help.
Yeah.
But I can't bring it all up here.
I've got the CME EZKeys,
yes,
the Bluetooth version, and so I don't know if the technology has changed on it, but kind of my feeling about it is it's great for just sitting and playing, and if you're just writing out some ideas or whatever. I think when I go to record, that's usually when I go grab the cable. It was just enough off that I felt it. I mean, not bad at all, not by any means, but just enough that I'd like, that's worth it just to grab the cord that's sitting a foot away from me and plug it in.
Yeah.
But I mean, this sounds impressive. It sounds like maybe they even up their game if that's the result of using the WIDI Masters, that they've got it down even tighter.
I was watching Robbie play on the pads for quite some time yesterday, and it seemed absolutely spot on to me.
I think a few people have reported some issues with certain instruments not working as well as others. But I mean, it's like if you had 100 instruments, probably about 5 at the moment don't really work that well. I tried them on these as well because I thought that'd be cool if I use it on something like this, because that has regular MIDI ports. But because this derives 5 volts from the mains or from a USB hub, I don't think enough power is going to these MIDI ports for it to work, because I just plugged them in and there was nothing. It was just dead. The thing didn't power up at all, even if I used a mains adapter. So I don't quite know what that is. I've been speaking to John Bickle at Modal, and he says that they've got the Yamaha ones, and they do work with these. So I'm going to try and sort of liaise between Modal and CME and try and figure out what the problem is there, because that would be useful for these little desktop synths.
Oh yeah.
So but yeah, that's just I'm kind of chuffed that I haven't wasted £100 on something that I'm not going to use. But so there you go. That's WIDI Master. Another quick plug for something before we get on to a little bit more meatier thing, and then we'll get back to Marshall as well. So this is a Blu-ray that came out about a week or so ago. Or started to be delivered to customers about a week or so ago, and this is Node. So Node are a supergroup, a synth supergroup. They are Flood, who of course most people will know from his work with U2 and Depeche Mode. Mel Wesson, who is a long-time collaborator with Hans Zimmer, as is Dave Bessel. And then Ed Buller, who I personally know from Psychedelic Furs, and of course producing some of the best Britpop albums by the band Suede, who I absolutely adored back in the day. And these guys, they've got this massive rig. I'm going to show you this video now. This is the trailer for the thing. It's just an incredible setup that they've got here. And they did this one-off gig at the Royal College of Music in London a few years back. Now available to buy on Blu-ray. So hopefully we don't get a copyright strike for playing that, but it's a fantastic gig, and it's just these four guys on stage, all getting on a bit, all sort of our age. Maybe not Marshall's age. I think I'm aging him before his time. But lots of great hardware. It's a proper, nerdy synth fest, and you can just sit there, oh, look at those, cables and modulars and all sorts of there's PPGs in there, all sorts of weird modular stuff. Dave's playing guitar as well, and it's basically divided up into four tracks that kind of semi-improvised, I guess. And each of those tracks is just under about 15 minutes long, so it's a good hour's worth of music. And there's of course the stage show as well. It's out now on Blu-ray for $24.99 US, and then obviously shipping and taxes if you're outside of the US as well. So that's the Node Blu-ray live at the Royal College of Music, and it's available via Bandcamp. So let me just share that page with you all. So live at the Royal College of Music Blu-ray. There is also an audio album, which I believe is available through Ian Boddy's Din Music label on Bandcamp as well. So if you just want the audio, the whole show was recorded, and all of the pictures, all of the photographs that adorn the sleeves, and also there's a big slideshow feature on the Blu-ray as well, taken by my personal friend and member of the group, Neil Fellows, who lives about 30 miles that way, and he got invited to go and do all of the photography for that show, and he gets a credit on the back of there as well. So it's fantastic to see him recognised as well in there. So yeah, Node Blu-ray, get it, it's brilliant. Have any of you guys seen that at all? Is that news to you, or?
I watched the trailer before, and it looked absolutely awesome. It actually made me want to buy the DVD, and I haven't got a DVD player, so.
Well, actually,
I felt like I was missing out.
It's funny you should say that, because Neil, who took all the photographs at the gig, the official photographer, he got his Blu-ray delivered. He didn't have a Blu-ray player, so he specifically went out and bought a Blu-ray player for this. So
I see why. Yeah, it does look great.
But it's a really good show. A really good show. So well worth it. Great. So that's Node and live at the Royal College of Music. This one was interesting. So I don't know what you guys have you had a chance to look at this. This is something else that's being plugged by Jordan Rudess, who plugs everything nowadays. But this is called Camelot, and I wasn't aware of this until the other week. And it's basically this kind of performance management tool that runs either on a laptop or on an iPad. And you can organize your set lists. You can recall hardware and software instrument settings, be they plugins or, let's say, hardware. You've got attachments and notes for music scores. Excuse me, works at home and live on stage, cloud syncing and sharing across devices. And it just seemed like, if you're a live performer, and I was going to come to Ben first on this one, so I hope he's at least had a look at this. You can set up your entire show from patch changes and lyrics and scoring as well and all that kind of thing in just one cool place. Ben, as our resident live performance expert, what are your thoughts on Camelot?
I forgot what it's like to play live, but yeah, it does seem like an alternative to main stage, doesn't it? Yeah. With a few more bells and whistles. I think I use main stage live, and I think it is great. But one thing I wish it did a bit better is its handling of MIDI. It is pretty poor. It's not MIDI messages and that. It's great at that, but like MIDI playback.
Right.
I don't think it actually covers that at all. But that'd be something that I'd like to do to control lighting or program changes to other machines or what have you, effects, even the desk. And because I can't do that with main stage, I've got to run Cubase alongside it. So I've got Cubase doing all that and main stage kind of looking after me.
Yeah.
So if this has got better MIDI facilities in it than main stage, I'd consider swapping over. And of course, it opens up to the Windows users as well.
Yeah.
Who haven't, they can't use main stage.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think it's a great idea. I think if it's done right. And obviously with Mr. Rudess being involved, it's going to get loads of exposure.
Well, I mean, this one, he claims that he was also on, like a consultation team as well. So he's had input into it from a development perspective. What is good is that they do a free version, which is available for Mac and Windows. So not the iOS version, but just the desktop version. And the free version gives you hardware instrument maps, software plugin hosts, attachments. You're limited to 10 items, so that's an item they class is a hardware instrument, a software plugin, and an attachment. So a combination of those. So if you have 5 plugins and 4 hardware instruments, you'll only be able to use one attachment, and so on and so forth in whatever configuration. But it'll give you a flavour. You won't be able to back up or export, and you can have up to 4 computer activations with no expiration time. It just seems like a really kind of cool thing. Like you say, it's cross-platform, or certainly Windows and Mac, and just allows you to control your live performance. There's plenty of videos to look into to see it up and running. Marshall, do you do much live performance?
No, but that's something that I've been working towards for a long time. And then, of course, now we've got our whole situation where there's no live shows anymore. So, but the cool thing is we have the internet and we can still kind of do live performances that way.
Yeah.
I was looking at, I'd heard of Mainstage. I never really understood exactly what it was for. But when you guys sent the link for this, I kind of looked at it, and then I found a Dr. Mix video where he sits down with one of the guys from Camelot or whatever, and they explained it really well. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, so I could see it being very helpful.
Sorry, I had my mic turned down there. Take a drink. Cryss, do you do much live? Any live?
Probably put in... Yeah, I'm into the thousands of gigs now. But this probably wouldn't be for me because playing keyboards on gigs, I could probably count on one or two hands. So yeah, just it's always been guitar and occasionally bass, but. So this I don't think would have much use for me as I'm just not that great of a keyboardist.
Sure.
At least right now, I'm getting better. But interesting idea, though. I think the things that can make life easier. I guess as far as my life playing, I've always tried to make it to where I don't have to rely on a lot of integrated technology.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I have several pedal boards, just full of pedals. My big one is like probably 5 feet long, and just full of stuff on there. And I've never gone to any of the, like they've got some MIDI controlled looping units that will bring gear in and out and all that kind of stuff. But it just never worked for me as well as, I mean, I'm okay to do the tap dancing and got used to singing and playing and switching stuff in and out for that. And it just always seemed a reliable way for me to know what's going on. I there's no menus or anything to have to deal with. I could just be focused on the gig and what's going on. But I think for keyboardists though, this might be again a really great thing of consolidating everything to a hub that you can go to one place if there's some problems or you've got everything worked out so that again with my strategy of like I want to be focused on the music while still playing with a bunch of gear. I think this could be that kind of thing. Like you're not worried about switching presets and doing a bunch of stuff that you can be focused on the music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that totally. I can't see me moving from main stage now because I've invested so much time into it. And I've become such a main stage nerd. There's like very little about it that I don't know about.
Yeah.
In trying to achieve what I wanted to achieve, I ended up learning the whole thing. And I've got like every button on my controller keyboards mapped to something. They never get used, but they're all mapped to something. And everything's as customized as it could be. I've even got HAL 2000 as my MIDI indicator. So he flashes on and off every time I play a note. And so it might be fantastic, but unless it gives me that MIDI control that I'm missing from main stage, and I hope that Apple introduce that in a later version maybe. Yeah, I can't see me moving, but it does seem like a great thing, and I would recommend a live management software solution to live players because it's great. Everything's in one place.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that Mainstage hasn't received an update along with Logic since Logic 10.5 brought in the kind of Ableton-esque clip mode and stuff, because having that kind of thing in Mainstage from a live performance, because obviously Ableton Live was designed for live computer-based sequencing, so surely this is Apple's way of getting in on that game. Maybe it's in development, maybe that's the thing, and then maybe because of that it brings in some improvements. But
it would be great if it like mapped out to all the control, the Ableton Live controllers that you've got now. You could do that kind of thing with Mainstage. That'd be really good. Yeah,
definitely. So there you go. That's Camelot Pro, which is available now. CamelotPro.com. There's a free version, or it's $28.99 for iPad, or $149 US if you want the desktop version. Let's see, what have we got next? We might as well let's get to the Behringer one. So let me just clear off that. Right, so Behringer have made... we spoke about this last week. They announced that they were developing a BBG, which was their clone of the PPG Wave. And they announced this week that they have recruited Hermann Seib, or Seib, I'm not entirely sure, I think it's Seib. He's Austrian, and he's been involved with Waves and PPG, and has worked with Wolfgang Palm as well, and produced a thing called Wave Term C, which is like a modern interface between modern day computers and the original hardware. So he really does know his stuff. And there he is in all his glory. And he's been recruited by Behringer to come in and work on this project. And I just thought it was very cool. Well, cool, that they've gone to someone who knows what they're doing with this stuff. And I think it gives me more confidence that the BBG, if that's what it's going to be called, is going to be a well done thing. Marshall, you into? Were you excited about the announcement of the BBG? Is that something that might be on your radar?
I don't know. I don't know a lot about the original, so I'm kind of either way on that one. I mean, if they put out a product that sounds good, cool. But I don't know, like in terms of the original PPG, that was like way before. I've only seen those on videos and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What encourages me a lot about this piece of news is when we spoke about the BBG last week, we talked about how it would be great if they paired it up with a computer application that replicated the Waveterm module, which was the bolt-on, the big blue screen with the disk drives that gave you the analysis mode and the FFT and the sampling and sample playback and using samples as wavetables. And given that Hermann has produced computer software that does pretty much that for the existing hardware, this gives me a bit more confidence that they're going to maybe hit that mark as well. And it's not just going to be the Wave on its own, but it's going to have all of the good stuff. Which, because for me, a PPG Wave is nice, but a Waveterm is sexy. Anyone else excited about this? Is it just me because it's digital?
I think the charm on this is that if you have an interest in the original, or there's some connection with the original, and that's probably where it's a little more difficult, for me, or same with Marshall. Like I know it's been used on a lot of classic tracks. And there are probably a lot of people that have really lusted over that over the years. Like, oh, I wish I could get one of those. But now, just like all the other ones they're doing, like we might have a CS80 from Behringer, and a lot of us have wanted that. These days, though, like there's so many synthesizers that are doing wavetable things. Like I've got a number of them on the computer, Pigments and Hive, and then have some hardware that does it in my Eurorack or Hydrasynth. That probably has quite a bit extended capability. So, I would probably similar to what I said last week was that, I think it's great for somebody that really has longed, and I could say that about other pieces of gear, other synthesizers, where it's like I just wanted that particular sound. I don't need everything else. I love the way that sounded on that one song or that one album or whatever, and it would be great, like you said, if they can do something that replicates that original software, all the better. And again, I kind of looking long range on this, because there are quite a few people that have been saying like, well, they need to get back to making original synthesizers. And I like the fact that it's kind of evolving over time. Like, let's get some of these classics that we've wanted for a long time but have not had any access to. And then as they've developed those, and in these, the monos or the PPG or, any of the stuff, as they're figuring everything out as a company, how to make really great synthesizers, that at someday in the future, maybe 5 years from now, that they start putting out after they've gone through the Jupiter and the Prophet and all this kind of stuff, or whatever they're going to do, they go, let's design our own unique synthesizers now and take it into the future.
Yeah.
Even a Frankenstein synth would be great, though, wouldn't it? If they said like, we did a really good job of the oscillators on the Boog, the filters on the UBXA were superb. It kind of mash it up a bit and give us something new that way.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's something we were talking about last week. Aaron brought up with his rig, because he's like, well, I've got some oscillators And then he's talking about how he was buying all these different filters. And I had, on a smaller scale, I had done the same thing with my my Waldorf KB37. It had the Bogan there, but then I've got a polybox filter, a Sim filter, a couple of Roland filters, and then mixing and matching that kind of stuff. I would be totally down for something like that.
Yeah.
So
it fills me with hope that if they do a Fairlight clone, they might come knocking on my door. Yeah, right. Yeah. Whatever. Not if they want it to be a success.
It'd be mad not to.
Yeah, well, you'd have to pay me well. And from what I hear, that's not going to happen. So there you go. Behringer are recruiting, or have recruited, an expert in PPG technology. And maybe, I don't know if this is a... it just says he joins Behringer / Music Tribe development team. So whether this is just like a fixed term thing, and then after this is done he's off, or whether there's longevity in this thing, developing and improving. Because he's clearly built modern day software, and he's worked on the iOS apps with Wolfgang as well. So he's clearly up to date with that, and so now there's up to date hardware to work with. It's probably something he's very excited about too. So yeah, good to see.
After Wolfgang, he's probably the best person to get involved in it.
Exactly.
He,
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm wondering at the moment what the present day Waldorf are making of this all, because obviously they don't make a PPG other than the software version, which is pretty much it's up to date, but it's out of date, if you know what I mean. It's horribly small in terms of its GUI, but it has that sound, and it really does have that sound. So
now, does the Quantum and Iridium have some of that built into it?
I don't know, because I've not used any of those. They clearly obviously have wavetable stuff.
Marshal's got a Kyra, hasn't he?
Well, and I've got a Quantum over here too. I think it does, but I don't know. I wouldn't know what I was looking for in terms of the wavetables themselves, like which ones would have been PPG, wavetables. I think it's got everything from the Blofeld in it as well. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. There may be some PPG stuff in the Quantum and the.
But of course,
Iridium.
like with all vintage stuff, the real kind of selling point is the old hardware, the old digital to analog converters that give it a character, and obviously,
right. And that's what I was hearing about. This is they got to get those the DACs right.
Yeah, and the filters, because the filters on those things were pretty impressive on the PPG.
If you had to give like the PPG a signature sound, what would it be? For me, it's kind of like that hard sync. Hard sync, grainy, low end sound. That's like that's PPG.
The one that always springs to mind is a wave term patch, is the Cathedral Choir, which Propaganda used a lot on their album Secret Wish. But it is. I was in the same room as one about 2 or 3 years ago, and it was Stock Aitken and Waterman's one, so the PWL machine, and it's just it's like a Fairlight. When you hear a Fairlight in person, it's just something else about that sound. It's big, it penetrates. The low end is really low and just pure. It's just something really visceral about it, and hopefully they'll get that out of this. So,
and there is something about a very simple architecture that so works.
Yeah.
I mean, think about some of the gear that I use. Some of my vintage tube amps, like they're very simple. Like part count is really low compared to some modern stuff, but it sounds great. Or vintage fuzz pedals, like I build fuzz faces, and it's 2 transistors. It's like 3 or 4 caps, and I don't know, 4 or 5 resistors, some jacks, and a foot switch. I mean, it's nothing. There's nothing to it, but it is amazing sounding. It's a classic, and I think that with synthesizers too. Sometimes that simple architecture can produce some really beautiful sounds.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Right, let's do one quick more topic, and then we'll get back to Marshall, then we'll start wrapping things up. So, this one is just a little one that popped out, but it's kind of interesting because it's kind of a fairly unique sounding thing. The guys at Toontrack, there's 2 plugs for them today. They've come up with EZKeys Hybrid Harp, which is 5 types of instrument forming one coherent voice. And it really is this kind of mishmash of instruments. So you have a harp, you have a harmonium, you have a nickel harper, which I'd never heard of. It's a keyed fiddle, apparently. It's a traditional Swedish string instrument. Of course, Toontrack are Swedish, so I guess that's where that comes from. And ocarinas and a glockenspiel. And they've kind of taken these and merged them all into this lovely instrument. Let's see if we can find some video here. So let's see if this works for us. I should have had this queued up, really. And let's turn the volume
From
up.
Toontrack, a hybrid instrument that blends multiple acoustic sources into new and interesting instruments.
It sounds very nice, actually. I quite like that. And Cryss, you made this point when we were talking about this before the show, that it kind of harked towards the stuff that Spitfire Labs are doing.
Yeah, and that's kind of I was thinking about it too because I saw it announced, and I think I have a couple of the Toontrack key ones. I couldn't even tell you which ones they were because I just haven't used them. I always use the Easy Drummer. Mm-hmm. So I kind of got to thinking about that. I was like, well, this is kind of an interesting take on things. If this had come out in Labs, I would have probably been all excited about it.
Yeah.
But they do have, I mean, this is far more sophisticated than Labs is, and they have their chord generator MIDI stuff on there, and I've never really explored it, though, so I couldn't really say how useful or effective it is, but it might be kind of an interesting thing, like if you're a guitarist or something that doesn't play keys at all, to be able to generate some arrangements for songs that are will fit stylistically, and that's something that's common to all the Toontrack names the EZKeys line. Yeah.
So I mean it's they have a huge amount of stuff. I mean they are incredibly prolific, especially with these small kind of EZKeys. EZKeys MIDI. I'm a massive fan of Superior Drummer, which is the only stuff I own from Toontrack, and it's beautifully sampled. I mean, they really do know what they're doing with this stuff, and I just kind of like this kind of eclectic blend of these really old stringy windy type instruments, and there's just, I mean, looking through the patch lists and stuff, and there's some really great kind of combinations, and I like that. And I don't know how much you can actually then go in and mess around with those yourself. I mean, certainly the interface would betray a quite complex system that they have going there. But it's these five instruments, in excess of 40 mix ready presets. I don't know whether so it doesn't say whether you can do your own, but that looks very interesting. Any opinion from you on that, Marshall? I mean, I guess this really isn't down your street, so to speak.
Well, but the cool thing is having more access to other types of sounds, even in my style of music, this can definitely be utilized for sure, and add a little bit of uniqueness with that as well, with those kind of timbres. So. Yeah, this reminds me of like when the string library started to get really good, because you used to get, you'd have like, I remember even like the Nord Wave, like it had some kind of string samples in it, but they weren't super great. But then like I got the East West Symphonic Orchestra plugin, and that's brilliant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this kind of reminds me of that, but like with the whole different set of instruments.
Mm.
Be brilliant for film composition as well.
Yeah,
definitely.
And with some of these blending of instruments, it can kind of take you to a place where you're like, wait, what was that I was just listening to? Because it has a familiarity to it of these are instruments, harp or something, like we know what that sounds like, but then when we have some of these things blended together, like it's familiar yet different, and it kind of perks the ear up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a bargain at the moment as well, because it's normally €155, but it's currently on sale for 60. So that's less than half price. So yeah, comes as a plug-in audio unit, VST and AAX, as well as a standalone version as well. 850 meg space required, so not too large. So that's EZKeys hybrid harp from Toontrack. There you go. So let's go back to Marshall. So Marshall, let's talk about your presence online. So we've got your YouTube page. Tell us a little bit about what you've kind of put out on there, because I'm looking through there. You've got the demo of the Blue Arp, but obviously you were one of the lucky ones to get the new Korg Arp as well, which the 2600.
Yeah.
So do you use your YouTube channel for just kind of demonstrations or promotional purposes? Do you have you mentioned you do live show stuff as well?
Yeah, so the YouTube channel is a variety style channel, so I'll sometimes do some demos of synths. Sometimes I'll do live streams where I'm working on producing a track from start to finish. Sometimes I'll make little music videos and make a composition and try and edit together a music video, which I'm not that great at, but it's fun to try. And then I do a little show every now and then called Let's Talk Synths, where I have a couple guys on kind of like this and we chat about stuff. But I usually only do that when there's like a good chunk of announcements or something, and after NAMM, like a big event show or something, I'll get a couple guys on and we'll talk about what's going on and our plans and things like that. So yeah, can I do a bunch of different stuff on there?
Cool. It's a very varied channel. And then you've got these two other websites. So you've got let me just bring this up for the viewers. So you've got marshalarnold.com, which I guess is your kind of main website for all of your work. And then you've also got Overclocked Music, and I understand that's your label. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So that you're releasing yourself, and how many artists do you have on your roster?
Right now, there's one other guy that I released one track for, and it's actually been quite a while. It looks like my Twitter is broken on that personal site. I don't know what's up with that. But anyway, yeah, so it's pretty much just my stuff that I've released. I haven't really added aside from the one single that I had released on there. Mm-hmm. But
and what sort of plans do you have plans to do more with that in the future?
I would like to. Yeah, I just I find it hard to try and figure out where I need to focus. You know what I mean? Because I want to make music. That's the main thing I want to do, and I want to be able to release it on all the platforms. And so having the label is nice because I can push stuff out to all the digital online distributors, and that's nice to be able to do that very easily.
Cool. Guys, any further questions for our guest tonight?
Let Ben go first.
I was looking through your collection of gear, and it's a pretty impressive collection. And I was wondering, like, you said that you went from using software to your first purchase was MS2000B, and then you went to the SH201, was it? Mm-hmm. What was that? What spurred on this? I need more of this. I need to get a good collection of stuff together. Is it just gas, or was there some strategy behind it, or? So
basically I discovered very quickly that just because a synth looks cool doesn't mean it's necessarily the one that you need.
Yeah.
Especially if you're looking for a certain style, which I was at the time looking to make this trance music.
Yeah.
And I had I known what I know now, I would have gotten an 8080 or an JP8000 like years ago, because I didn't know. So part of it was I was going and I would buy a synth, and then I'd use it, and then I'd be like, okay, well, it does this really well, but it kind of doesn't do this. And then I would try a different synth and then figure out what that one does. And so eventually it was like, okay, but like now I need more of these because they each have a strength that I want. I want to have access to that. It's like having a certain tool to build a house or something. Like, you need these tools to be able to do that. So that was kind of how I started amassing more and more gear over time, is just buying it and being like, what can this do? What can it do well that the other ones can't?
I've got a couple more questions as well.
Go
if you
for
don't
it.
mind.
Sure.
I noticed that there's quite a bit of roll and stuff in there, and you've got a JD800 and a V synth as well.
Yep, 2 V-synths.
2 V synths.
I've got the original V-synth and then the GT.
Man, you don't need to say anymore.
Yeah.
And well,
Pass the Kleenex.
and is that in the background there over your right shoulder? Is that a slim fatty up there? Is it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a white one. A white slim fatty.
I got rid of my slim fatty to buy a sub 32, whatever it's called. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, the one right below it is a sub 37.
That's the one.
The one? Yeah.
I kind of preferred the sound of the slim fatty.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
100%. The fatty is one of my favorite synths.
Yeah.
If not my favorite synth of
I
all
really
time.
regret getting
Probably
rid of
that.
that. I was thinking about getting some of the rack one. Oh, you've got it.
Yeah, he's got him.
Yeah, you can't quite see them, but I've got 3 slim fatties.
You do that.
They're all poly-chained. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're poly-chained
I
with the slim fatty, or with the
I totally
little fatty.
embarrassed myself. I love that Marshall did a track with all the poly chain, so it was like a poly with a bunch of, I don't remember what you used, reverb or delays. So there's some ambience on it.
Yeah, I used the Reason plugin, which is something I've said Reason, Propeller Head or whatever, the Reason Studios, whatever they're called now. They should have done that years ago. Make their effects plugins that we can use in our DAWs, because they sound great. The RV7000 reverb is awesome, and that's what I used on that demo.
Yeah, I loved it, and so I went and I had posted it on Facebook, and then I looked at like the next day or something. I looked down my wall. I was like, I'd already posted it because I was like, man, this thing sounds so good. And I mean, I revisited it like a month later or something, and I posted it again. I was like, oh, I already got it on there, but it was so great sounding. I loved it.
The Slim Fatty's a classic. I need to get another one. I need to replace that, like, definitely.
Yeah, I wish, and Moog should think about maybe doing another form factor like that. That style is, I think it's great because you can get a couple of them, a few $100, and you got yourself a nice little 4 or 5 voice poly. I mean, I guess in total, it's more than that, but $400, $500 per voice. You don't have to get them all at once. You can get them used. So
Final question from me. I'll leave you alone then. if you've got to get rid of all your gear and just keep one synth, which would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one. If I had to get rid of everything, I would probably keep either the Kyra or the Virus.
Wow.
Just because they're multi-timbral. Yeah. And if I had to get rid of everything, at least I could do a lot of stuff with those only. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Great.
All right, Ben. I'm going to throw that back at you. Vicky's in the mood with you, and she says you got to throw everything out apart from one. What do you keep?
Oh God, I wish I hadn't asked that.
You see,
That's tough.
You can give it, you just can't take it.
You know what? I'm going to be really predictable and say the V-Synth GT. I'll keep that because I can track things up in my DAW, and I reckon virtually anything is achievable with that if you really put your mind to it, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll go with that.
You're not getting off this one, Cryss. Come on. One synth that you have.
I knew he was going to say that.
Yeah. I think in a budget though, like I really like my System 8, especially the JX3P plugin. But the Hydra synth is, man, it is really versatile.
Yeah,
and so you could make a lot of great music, a ton of great music, a lifetime worth of music with just that one synth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, it's way more versatile than the Moog 1. The Moog 1 for an analog is exceptionally versatile. So that should, you know, be a really great plug for the Hydra.
Yeah. What about you, Robbie?
So I've often thought this, and I'll try and keep this short. I always thought that if I kept one synth, it would be a workstation type synth. I hate workstation type synths. I've only got one, which is the Fusion. And that has, you know, hard disk recording, 8 tracks, audio input, virtual analog, FM, physical modeling, sampling, all that. It has everything. And I've always said, yeah, that'll be the one. But it's kind of like it's boring. And the one that, the one that I think that I would miss the most still is my Korg Prophecy. I still think, I still think that little thing there, I was playing it today, because now I've got this all plumbed in. I've been longing to play the Z1 and the Prophecy together just to kind of hear how they improved, you know, from one to the other. And I just get all gooey and stuff about the Prophecy. And of course that's the worst one to keep because it is, you know, monophonic and that's it. And you can't really make much with one of those on its own. So I guess, all things considered, seeing as I have sampled the heck out of that Prophecy, I would probably keep my Akai S6000.
Wow, yeah.
I think as a versatile thing that I can just, you know, make stuff with.
Yeah.
So, Marshall, just what are some of your most used, like if we cast that net a little bit broader, the ones that you go back to time and time again?
It really does vary a lot because I'll get on kicks and I'll be like, oh, today I'm gonna use the crap out of my Mini Moog, or I mean it could be anything. So I mean recently I've been doing more with kind of the 8080, some of the older VA stuff I really like for some reason, probably because that's how they made all the trance stuff back in the day.
They do sound fancy, don't they?
Yep. So right now I've been doing a lot of that. I have a whole set of modules over here that I have hardly actually dug into. You know, some like a Triton, XV5080. Some of those I really want to do some more with as well. So I mean, it could be anything. Just what mood am I in right now?
Yeah.
So.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, when you're working on something, do you limit yourself to the amounts of pieces that you will use? Like, will you say, like, I'm only going to use these 4 synths, or is it just anything goes?
Yeah, well, it'll kind of start out with I'll be playing around with the synth. I'll come up with a melody or a bass line or something that kind of starts it, and then I'll start kind of being like, okay, so what else does this need? And depending on what I start with, obviously that synth's already got that duty, and I need something else. I mean, maybe I'll do the V synth, or maybe I'll do the Moog 1, and I just kind of think about what does it need, and what do I kind of feel like messing around with at the same time.
I listened to your Kyra demo earlier, and that was really, really good. I love the way that the kind of theme gets brought in, but then it's like reinforced with the bass note changes, and it really worked for me. I thought you did a cracking job.
Oh, thank you. That was a lot of fun, and I was like, I just spent like a whole week making that. When I got the Kyra, I was like, this thing's awesome. I want to try and show people this thing's awesome, because it was kind of getting getting panned online a lot. I was like, I don't understand why people don't like this thing. It's not. I think part of it was it came out like right before the or right around the same time as the Hydrosynth, and so all of a sudden morphing wavetable synths are like super cool, and this thing it's a VA. It's virtual analog. It's not. It wasn't designed to do what Hydrosynth can do, and that's why you should buy a Hydrosynth. But it doesn't make it a bad synth. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
Cool.
So final question for me, as far as making music and everything that you're doing, like, would there be like a particular piece of advice that you'd give all of us and everybody else watching about making music?
Don't give up. It took a long time to be able to do what I'm able to do now. Not that I'm the greatest ever or even really that great at all. To make something coherent that's produced well, that's been like a big challenge, and it takes time. So don't get discouraged if you spend hours and it's still not working out. You just got to keep at it and try learning from as many people as you can. And with YouTube, my gosh, that I had YouTube starting out, it would have been a lot easier.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Had we had computers when we were starting out, it would have been a lot
easier. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't give up. That's my advice.
Good advice. Good advice. And on that note, we are just over the hour, or the 2 hours, shall I say. Marshall, thanks ever so much for coming along today, and been great to learn more about your process and what you do, and we'll get you back in sometime soon, I hope.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. It's the first time I actually ever talked to you guys in like virtual real life or whatever.
Yeah.
It's been really nice.
Hopefully we'll do more. We'll if we can get a bigger crowd in one day. It'd be nicer to have like a whole gang of people in there. But yeah, great. Thanks ever so much, Marshall. And if you want to check out Marshall's work, let's just bring this up again. So you've got the YouTube channel, which is just Marshal Arnold. Then you've also got marshalarnold.com, which is the main page there. And then you've got Overclocked Music, which is his label. So all of those available. The links will be in the. If they're not already, I think they are already in the bits underneath the video that you see on YouTube. Thanks ever so much to everyone for joining us. Everyone in the chat room. It's been great to try and keep up with everything that's has been said. And
just a couple things,
yeah,
Robbie.
Sure.
Be sure also to check out. Today was a great day for live streaming. Go back and check out DivKid's huge modular event. Watch some of that. It was fantastic.
Ben's just joined us.
Yeah, Jamie had Gaz Williams on his show, so I know we share a lot of the same people. We're all like a big group of friends. But if you didn't get to watch either of those, please go back and check them out. They're both fantastic.
Indeed. And if you like what we do and what they do, then please make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you want to know if anything else is coming up, then hit that bell button too, and you'll get notified as to when the live shows. But as far as we're concerned, it's every Sunday, 8 p.m. UK, 3 p.m. / 12 p.m. US. So yeah, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because the more subscribers we have, the more we can do with the channel, and the more we can do with the channel, the better content we can hopefully provide. And also, of course, if you're not already a member of the Facebook group page, Synth Network, go and search for that on Facebook. And if you're not a member, just click the join button. Answer the three very simple questions.
Answer the questions.
These questions 3. And then just answer those, and you'll get right in, and you can mix with a whole bunch of really, really cool people, industry professionals, amateurs, people in between. Everything's there. It's called the Synth Network. We just wanted to make it something that was just different from all the other kind of noise that was out there, and it just seems to have a bit of class about the name. So come in and join us there, and have some fun. Thanks ever so much, guys. Very quickly, anybody doing anything interesting over the next 7 days before we come back again? Cryss, you got anything planned?
No, I did
Same
pick
old,
up
same old?
some plugins though, like that we had been talking about. So I don't remember what week we had talked about it, but some of the smart plugins. So I just barely got them and have started to check them out. So maybe I'll be able to have some sort of report next week about
Cool.
how they work.
Yep, let us know. Ben, got anything planned for the coming days?
The most musical thing I'm going to be doing is painting my studio, unfortunately.
Well, it's got to be done, hasn't it?
Yeah, studio maintenance.
Yeah, absolutely.
No one. I just rearranged all this stuff 2 weeks ago. Thank God I'm done with that.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping now that I've finished here as well. Everything's wired in, everything works. I tested it all today, so I can actually put my feet up and maybe even make some music for a change. That would be interesting.
Oh, don't take it too far.
That'd be charm down, lads, charm down. Anyway, thanks guys for all your input. You make the show, and we shall see you all again, same time, same place next week. Thank you very much. Goodbye. And we're out.